Yo, I hope you all can hear me. Um, I got some people jumped in already. Oh, Jim O Tribe, what's up, man? It's been forever. Big hunk, man. You've been a while. Can you all hear me? Somebody out there, give me some love if you can hear me. I'm gonna figure out in a second how to get old Dan Garner joined in. Oh, thank you, buddy. All right, I appreciate it. Okay, you got good audio. Oh, Cody, I forgot to block you. Damn. I guess I'll let you stay in here. All right. We'll let that joker stay in here. Um, cool. How do I add Dan? You can obviously tell. I think this is my first time ever doing an Instagram live. Uh, any help out there, friends? Do I have to ask Dan or do let's see, how's that work? Um, let's see. Aha. Oh, there's the man himself, I think.
What's going on?
Hey!
What's up, buddy? Okay. You hear me loud and clear?
Oh, wait.
No.
Are you there?
Yeah, I should be.
Okay, I got
No.
you. I got you. I
I'm
got
good
you.
now?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I bet you. I think we got a little delay because you're coming all the way from the Arctic Circle. So
Yeah, Canada's the Arctic Circle. What's up, my man? How you doing?
good, man. We're gonna have to assume there's a little bit of lag time here, so we'll do our best not to talk over each other.
Yeah, that happens. But we'll just answer questions and then I'll try and not yell about things, which certainly will happen. We'll see how it goes.
Dude, I was gonna wait a few minutes, but there's a truckload of people already in here, so I see no
Awesome.
great reason to get going.
Cool.
So those of you out there, friends, thank you for the questions that you put up on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and stuff. So uh, we got a ton, actually, like way more than I was anticipating. So we've
Yeah.
curated them just a little bit, and we've got a bunch we're going to try to run through. So Dan and I will go back and forth. But before we do that, just really quickly, um, I'm going to give you a little bit of background real quick about myself and what I do, and then Dan as well. So Dan, why don't you just, anyone who's not familiar with you, is tell them your background that's pertinent to today's discussion.
Sure. So, you guys, I'm a functional medicine practitioner. So I've got a ton of theoretical knowledge in this world. Also, just this is my absolute number one passion. This is all I think about. Andy actually called me earlier today, and I was reading a study on uric acid. So it's just kind of gives you an insight on the kind of person I am. It doesn't matter what enzyme, what chemical reaction, what's going on in the body. I'm interested in it. I find biology unbelievably fascinating. So I've got a formal education in health science and functional medicine, but more importantly, I think it is more important, I've got experience in this world. So I combine that theoretical knowledge with literally having done over 1,000 labs on people and labs on high performance athletes, obese people, bodybuilders, you name the type of demographic. I'm getting attacked by my dog. You name the type of demographic, I've got experience working with them. When you do labs on over 1,000 people, you end up seeing things that sometimes you just won't find in scientific journals and making decisions that work, that become your own KPIs that are really ahead of the curve. So I'm a guy who's trained 3 Super Bowl champions, an Olympic gold medalist, an Olympic silver medalist, 2 Olympic bronze medalists, 2 UFC world title winners, 2 WWE champions, Player of the Year winners. I mean, you name it. I'm the coach guy here, so I've got a lot of experience, and My dog's attacking me, and I can hear a kid in your background. So, damn it, that's where we're at. But I think that's all. I feel socially awkward talking about myself, so I'll just leave that there.
Dope, cool. You've also got as one of our friends here pointed out in the comments section, and your clever green shirt. You've got one of your athletes you've been working with for a number of years, Sean O'Malley, is competing this weekend.
Yeah.
So good luck. You know what's funny is actually I had in my time hop, I had a picture pop up of Sean and I in bed together like 5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, man, I should post this right now because he's fighting this weekend. And then I thought, he's baby Sean, right? He's just before all the colors and his little baby fro. And we were in a hotel room. We were in a bed together in Fresno, California. So
hilarious.
Good dude. Cool. So, most of you probably know me, but in case you don't, I'm a full-time professor and scientist. I've got a PhD in human bioenergetics. And for the last over a decade, I've been running the Center for Sport Performance at Cal State Fullerton. So we do science and research and anything that we feel like is going to enhance human performance or has the potential to. And on the side, I've been working with professional athletes like Dan for a long time. So a number of combat sport athletes, same idea. I'm not going to run through it, but it would sound, akin to Dan's list there. Lots of world champions and the highest paid player in multiple major American sports, or close MVP, Cy Young Award winners, like things. So that's not to say Dan and I are the smartest or best guys in the room, but the reason we want to get on this and do this live today is number one, is just to see if you guys have an appetite for it. Are you guys interested in hearing and seeing these things? And then just to talk about some of the stuff that we've found in our experience with the elite athletes. So just to qualify then, we're not going to talk anything about disease diagnosis or treatment or management. Both Dan and I have done that a little bit in the past, but really today we want to talk about the other end of the spectrum, which is what we're most qualified for. So let's just jump right into it. So sort of the first question I thought we would tackle, and then somebody, Sammy here has already asked us here, but the basic thing, you want to optimize performance. You aren't really super worried about your cholesterol levels or, thinking that you're going to die anytime soon. So just to start off, Dan, what are the labs? Last week. We're going to keep this just to blood work. There's so many other areas we could go to, but for the sake of our time here, we're just going to stick to blood analysis for a variety of reasons. So what are the blood labs? What are they called? How do they ask for them? What do they ask for that you typically want your high performance athletes to start with?
Sure. So that's an awesome question. I love that we're sticking with just blood work because blood work has an unbelievable amount of scientific literature on. I'll tell you guys when something's my opinion. I speak from the evidence. So I always say this is my opinion if it's not directly from the evidence. And when it comes to blood work, there is so much evidence in this world. If you ask your doc for a CBC and a CMP, they're going to know exactly what you mean right away. That's a complete blood count and a comprehensive metabolic panel. Those two labs are so unbelievably underrated. It's staggering what you can draw. I mean, a lot of people think like, how do I measure hydration? What should I do with hydration? Even just a basic lab, you can get, there's something called osmolarity. Osmolarity sounds fancy, but it's really not. It just means there's a lot of things on one side and not much on this side. So your body will diffuse things to that other side to make it even. There's calculations we can draw from basic blood chemistry to give us serum osmolarity, which is the #1 gold standard measure for intracellular osmolarity. So we can get the best hydration marker possible by calculating very simple things from labs. So when people look at bloods and they just see, okay, this is normal at a range, they don't actually understand that ratios are actually more important than a lot of these actual markers. And then the way in which you combine different things to get osmolarity, to get anion gap, to get all of these different blood viscosity markers, there's so much that we can draw from that a skilled eye is not just looking for a state of disease. When you look at these things, you can 100% enhance performance, enhance health, enhance adaptation from training. So that's really just what I would open with. Get a CBC, get a CMP, and it's not the lab that gets you the value, it's the interpreter of the lab. that's going to get you the value. Bring that to the right person and they will make you a different athlete.
Yeah, awesome. So a little bit more context on that. Those labs are fairly cheap too, depending on where you're at. Most likely your insurance is going to cover both of those, but most likely they're not standard either. So if you go and just say, I just want some lab work, they're probably going to order a lipid panel, maybe a few other things. But if you just say those two those two terms, you'll probably get them you'll probably get them free or close to it. If you're a student at most American universities, those will also probably come with your health care packages, free to your students, or very small $10 upgrades or things like that. So that is what we order. And what we typically do for most individuals is, if we see something in those labs that indicates a possibility of something else, and then we will go directly measure those things. So if we see something there that indicates, hey, maybe copper's off, or we think there's something going on in another location, then we'll go order those labs outside of that. Now, for our high performance athletes, sometimes we just kind of order everything at once, but it just saves time. And
and a lot of that too comes down to understanding that reference ranges don't mean a whole lot. So I know.
So this is where we're going to go next. And there's actually a couple of questions in the comment section alluded to this.
Perfect.
And so, this is the one thing. And so there's comments about sort of, which ratios matter. You said ratios matter, which ones do, and then what are the reference range values. So I guess the way to open this part of the conversation is, you have to understand, everyone, where these reference ranges come from. Number one, it's not one set standard. So depending on where you get your blood labs from, which laboratory, LabQuest or LabCorp or Quest or your physician, what's in the right reference range could be different, right? And we can certainly go over some examples if you want. Within that, though, there's argument among what are those reference ranges actually telling you. And so if you're going to a physician and ordering blood work, all they're really looking for are, do you have any major flags for disease? And if you don't have any of those, they're basically going to move on. Obviously, our goal in this talk is to do something a little bit different. So anything you want to add on that before we start maybe talking about some details, Dan?
Of course, yeah. I mean, and I'll keep it short because I think you know how long I could talk about reference ranges for. But just to give you guys kind of an insight on what we're looking at, kind of the question was kind of jumped into ratios plus reference ranges. In terms of what ratios matter, I mean, there's excellent longevity research with respect to having a total cholesterol to triglyceride measure of approximately 2-to-1. So someone could have a slightly elevated cholesterol and triglyceride, yet if the ratio holds true, it's not nearly as impactful as what somebody may think it is. Another good one that really flies against what a lot of people think is that your LDL should be at a 2-to-1 ratio to your HDL. If your HDL is higher than your LDL, that's actually dyslipidemia. That's a problem. You've got a pathological state. Everyone's trying to drive HDL up as high as possible, but there's excellent research that HDL, when you get above 80, increases risk for cancer. So ratio with LDL, everything, there's no like good and bad. Everything has its own physiological function. And so long as it's working in concert with the other things that regulate it, that's what's going to be really important. You'll find white blood cell counts as well on blood panels. You're going to find your neutrophils, your lymphocytes, your monocytes, your eosinophils, your basophils. And with respect to them, they should be at 60-30-7-3-0. That's basically the percentage breakdown. But that's the thing. It's a percentage. It's not the absolute amount. So you're looking at ratios. If your ratio of neutrophils to lymphocytes is closer to 1-to-1, that actually indicates a viral infection in the body. And it could be asymptomatic. And that's a 1-to-1 indicating viral. But if we have, it's actually research has shown that if you're getting 2-to-1 neutrophil to lymphocyte, and then especially higher, it indicates a bacterial infection. And how many people, Andy, have we seen with bacterial problems in their stool?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So it kind of tailors back to what you said when we're looking at this, it can also tell us what else we should order or what else we would order to look at If somebody's neutrophil to lymphocyte was slightly off, we know, okay, you probably should get a stool analysis. We're going to look more into this thing. So
Yeah.
with respect to ratios, reference ranges, I could go on all day, but just because you're normal in the reference range says absolutely nothing about your current physiologic state.
Yeah. I have seen a number of people in my life with an HDL of over 80, like you mentioned. Certainly a handful over 85. Not one of them has been healthy.
No.
Never
Yeah,
once. Never
no.
once.
It certainly won't. And then like there are other markers too. Like if you're looking at inflammation, for example, on a basic blood chemistry, GGT, uric acid, and bilirubin are your absolute best markers. Uric acid is a water-soluble antioxidant. Bilirubin's a fat-soluble antioxidant, so you get a more complete picture. And then GGT represents glutathione status in the body. So we're getting a total look at inflammatory states in the body. So if one of these markers is off, then we know, okay, maybe I should actually look elsewhere to see what the root cause of this inflammation status is.
Yeah, and the fun part about that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'll say the fun part about those three markers in particular is it gives you a little bit of directionality of where to go as well.
100%, yeah, and it's fun for us. I love when I look at a blood chemistry that's all messed up, because that's actually I don't like back in the day, back in the 50s, doctors only had like high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. That was it. It would be real easy to do practice back then. But now I love looking at messed up blood chemistries because we've learned so much about biology.
Yeah, actually, I probably should have said this at the beginning, but I want to take a quick pause here. We're only on question 1, by the way, folks. I got at least 8 or 9 more, so I'm going to speed up the pace a little bit. But Dan, I'll let you answer this for yourself, however you practice. But for me personally, I've been looking at athletes' blood panels for a long time, over a decade. I have a decent experience in this field. And what I still say is, as you're going through this, make sure you're tying blood chemistry to subjective outcomes as well. In other words, you are still treating a human. You're still treating an athlete. So you want to look at these blood markers and say, hey, am I seeing a number of signs that point to something that may be even asymptomatic? That's important. But also, you have to ask them, how are you feeling? What are your performance measures looking like? How's our recovery? Are we getting better? Do we have any other signs and symptoms? Are you sick all the time? Trouble sleeping? This is the stuff that really ties it in. And when you see something in the blood that then matches symptomology that you're hearing from the individual, you've got a very, very strong indication that that is a true finding and not a false positive or a false negative. So always keep that in mind. As much as I do love to see the blood stuff and go, oh, bing, 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 we're seeing signs of inflammations are excessively high, or you're immunocompromised, or whatever else is going on, you still really need to make sure you're taking everything else into consideration, because there's always a lack of science, no matter what, right? None of these things are 100% established because there's too much variation from person to person. There's too much variation from laboratory to laboratory, none of these things. So there's some rightful criticism of any marker, but the point is what we're looking for are trends that link up in multiple areas. So we're seeing the same thing with your daily metrics. We're seeing the same thing with what you're reporting, and we're seeing this in your blood. It starts to form a really strong case. So this is why it's important that you spend time with your athlete or your individual and ask other questions, and don't just take labs, send out supplements. That's not the best practice you're ever going to have. So.
Totally. I actually just did this a couple of days ago with a professional bodybuilder. I just shared my screen, and he showed me his labs, and I went through his labs, and I started talking about what the labs are. And then he was actually, hey, I'm actually feeling that. Hey, I'm actually been seeing that. We actually kind of met in the middle. As I was unpacking his labs, his symptoms were like, hey, this is exactly where I'm at. So then we had a perfect diagnostic case to move forward and order more direct labs to find the true root cause to his problem. So totally, man, subjective and objective is really the science and art of coaching.
Oh, okay, awesome. I'm going to jump over to, we're going to take some viewer questions here in a second, but I want to jump over to one of the ones. There's a handful of you that basically sent us your full labs. We're like, hey, interpret. Okay. Can't quite nail that. But do you want to handle, Dan, that second one? That's pretty lengthy. I don't know if you want to skip over that or some parts of that. The second one that we've got on our list here.
Yeah, so I'll handle it. but just everybody already understands that context matters. So I don't know this guy's diet. I don't know his genetic predispositions. I don't know things, but I can absolutely tell you what I know based on the numbers you give me.
Cool. Let's do that. So you want me to read off the question and then you can give us your thoughts on it?
Let's do it.
Okay. So this is Michael Godwin, number 9 here, said he's a powerlifting athlete basically, and he recently had some blood work done. The results showed his thyroid function, particularly free T, was high at 26.6 picomoles per liter. In addition, his liver ALT was classified as high at 65, CK was 683, and urea 9.2, creatinine 113, and globulin 36.3. So I jumped some units there, but it's because I know what they are, and I know you know where they're at. You're looking at the same thing. You guys can go look at the units if you want, but yeah. So what are your thoughts there?
It's pretty actually. So that one's actually kind of cool for people to hear about. So his high T was high T4. I'm assuming. Yeah. So I thought so because his ALT is high. So here's how this kind of works.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So here's how this works. This guy has high T4, which represents actually a lot of states of anxiety because you're producing a lot of thyroid hormone. What a lot of people don't know, and which is why it's important to understand functional physiology and not just a recipe book. A lot of people have a recipe book approach to labs, like high cholesterol, do this. Low GGT, do this. That doesn't work. You have to understand the metabolic pathway at which that lab has arrived at that result. That's how you truly interpret a lab at the highest level. And this guy having a high T4, that represents, it says a little overactive metabolism represents a little bit of anxiety. A lot of people don't know, this guy also had high globulin. So there's two main proteins. There's two main proteins in the blood, albumin and globulin. Albumin wasn't high, but globulin was. Globulin actually requires 10 times more L-tryptophan for the body to manufacture than albumin. So whenever somebody's making a ton of globulin, they're actually utilizing a ton of L-tryptophan. And when you're using a lot of L-tryptophan, tryptophan is actually the precursor for both serotonin and melatonin. And serotonin helps promote feelings of positivity and calmness. Melatonin, everybody's already familiar with, helps you sleep. And as a memory tool, serotonin puts you to sleep, melatonin keeps you asleep. But if globulin's eating up all of your tryptophan and you have thyroid driving up anxiety levels, well, then that's somebody who's going to be a lot more predisposed to anxiety at this point in time. Now, T4 could also be high due to a liver dysfunction because our body, it'll actually, when you're looking at thyroid values in a lab, 93% is T4 and only 7% is the active T3. T4 doesn't actually convert. It's kind of like on an as-needed basis, you can think about it. T4 will convert to T3 to activate metabolic processes, but this conversion happens in the gut bacteria, the liver, and the mitochondria. So his ALT was high, indicating liver damage, which is indicating an improper conversion over from T4 to T3, which is resulting in a T4 buildup. Not to mention, liver damage is what drives globulin up.
Yeah.
So with this case, it's like almost like a perfect case study for us to show that I would exactly be looking at liver issues because liver damage drives up globulin. Liver damage would inhibit conversion from T4 to T3. And also him being a power lifter, his creatinine, his creatine kinase, those are going to be high anyways because he's heavily muscled and training hard. So I ain't even worried about those. That's another good example of being out of the reference range doesn't mean it's representative of your physiology. So I would be looking at the cofactors for ALT, such as magnesium and B6. So that can actually function better. And I'd also be looking at liver health in general to see what's going on, what's the blockage, where's the damage coming from. And that would come from his questionnaire, his diet, and these other things.
Yep. So just to follow up a little bit on this one as well. We've had this recently, actually, on a case that we worked on together. But just for a little context, friends, the liver can handle quite an ass whipping. It really can. Other organs can't. And so if you're like, oh my God, I don't want whoever this individual is to be like, oh my God, I have liver failure. Look, probably not. We have seen values much, much, much higher than this. like way
Yes.
higher, and people just fine. So you're not optimized. This could be
Over
coming from
10
an
times higher.
like order of
And not, I'm
magnitude.
not joking. Yeah.
Put a digit on that for sure.
Yeah.
So you're in a okay spot. The other thing that we would do is if we were working with you, we would target those things. We maybe do some follow-up labs specifically for the liver. We would do some all this other stuff, questionnaires, but we would also then, I would probably have you do a CO2 tolerance test. And if you want to look at Brian McKenzie and Shift, Adapt, and those guys' work, the CO2 tolerance test is also something we've played with in our lab quite a bit. And it seems to be a pretty good indicator of someone's ability to handle state and trait anxiety. And so we would look at this from the biochemistry lab, all those things Dan just talked about. But then we would also look at this from the other side of the equation. So is this really being stress driven or mitigated? Could it be mitigated better by some higher stress tolerance, or is this something totally physiological? Because you're not going to know. Remember, people are complex, and so you can't just look at these things either from oh, you need to meditate. Maybe that's all the dude needs. Maybe not though. Maybe we need to medicate. Like there may be some actual physiology we've got to correct. So
100%.
we would look at this from both sides of the equation to try to understand. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe it's 80-20. Maybe it's 100% just hey, stress tolerance issue. Once he calms down, these things get back. And maybe something else is totally out of whack as well that we have to go address.
Totally.
So we'll call that good there. I'm going to hop over to some of the questions, and obviously this is my first time, so I'm a little bit idiotic about scrolling through the comments back to figure out they're here. Lots of people jumping on here. There's a lot of people that want us to interpret their labs. I told you, bastards. I warned you. I said we'll do it. You just throw them in there, and now y'all waited too late. We don't have time now.
Yeah.
So next time I throw up an IG live here, you better hop in early, and we'll get to your stuff like we just did this guy. Okay, there was actually one question that's a little bit off target, but we'll take it. Recommendations for supplements for children and kids. In general, my answer, I'm sure, is the same as yours, Dan, which is almost entirely unnecessary. We'll keep this one really short. We could elaborate a bunch, but the answer is very simple. Just almost surely not something you need at that point. Focus on the big rocks, quality movement, quality nutrition, food stuff, and supplements are just almost unnecessary.
For sure. Do you want me to elaborate, or are you going to move on to the next one? Yeah.
No, I think we're good there.
Yeah. Cool.
Recommended lab test frequency for natural athletes.
If you're a natural athlete and you're not driving your body to the extreme, I think twice per year is very fair. I think once every 6 months is a good frequency to have. But if you are enhanced, it would be once every 4 months would be the absolute minimum. I prefer once every 3 months.
Yeah, I would say it depends also on what we see initially. So if you look pretty good and we have some minor things to correct, 6 months is fine. If we get in there though, and this is happened many times, and you see some gnarly stuff, you've got huge, like double these, triple these liver values. You've got kidney dysfunction. We've had this recently. Some pretty gnarly kidney signals on someone who has to go through a pretty extensive weight cut for sport. We wanted to follow up 30 days later, every 30 days until we get correction on that. So let the labs lead you a little bit. It depends on how close, how far away from competition you are. As a standard for your average person, twice a year is probably sufficient. I guess is a good point to talk about.
Assuming nothing else is wrong, twice per year.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to understand, friends, that like minerals and vitamins and hormones some of them are fast changing, but most are not. So if you take a bunch of vitamin D for a week, you're probably not doing much to your vitamin D status in 7 days. It takes quite a long time to change mineral status to a significant level. So doing anything in less than 30 days for most of the things you are concerned with are especially if things are pretty good. If things are completely deficient or way too high, then they will autocorrect pretty quickly, right? So it's a curve. So being way off kilter changes fast, but as you get closer and closer to normal, then changes happen much slower. And so, a lot of the times, even every 6 weeks would be like, that'd be pretty aggressive. Probably bordering on wasteful. Really.
More like data collection. Like it's almost research instead of and like a protocol design at that time.
Yeah. So another question, do we go through MDs to order our labs, or is there other way to do that? I'll answer first, and then you can go. So depending on the sport that you're in. So with Major League Baseball folks, they tend to have a team doc, or NFL guys, we have a team doc we can go through for some things. I can't speak to NHL. Maybe you can. With the UFC athletes, it's depending on what we're going after. Sometimes it's super easy for them to get labs ordered, sometimes not. But my answer for this is the vast majority of the time, we just pay out of pocket. It's a couple of $100. This is what they do for a living, and they don't want to wait 2 or 3 weeks for a guy to get paid. They just pay $200 and get them done.
For sure. Yeah.
So
yeah, people can actually go, like if you're frustrated with an MD or whatever, you can actually go. It's great for Americans. They can go to Alta Labs. Alta Labs, you can order whatever you want. So like, and you can, yeah.
I've used Alta Labs a truckload.
Yeah. It's super, super, super easy. So if you're frustrated with someone, then go through Alta Labs. But for example, like going through myself or Andy, him and I, we do lab-based nutrition, and I'm a practitioner, so I get practitioner rates. So if you hire somebody who you should anyways, that's the main point, to look at your labs for you, they're going to get you a discount on your labs, plus you're going to get the actual information.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way to go. The same thing, I guess, while we're here, there's a question about where to get your labs done. It doesn't matter for the most part. That part's fairly irrelevant. The labs you order are what matter and how they're interpreted. But the person who actually sticks a needle in your arm or the lab you send them to, it's not that big a deal. Don't worry about them too much. What are the most essential labs to get? We sort of covered that earlier, so you can scroll back or go back to the beginning if you want. So let's hop over to the kind of list of previous questions. Dan, your thoughts on chronic, just below reference range values for WBCs and neutrophils? No other CBC abnormalities.
So that's immune dysregulation.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, that goes back to what I was saying previously. Your neutrophils shouldn't be low. That represents a viral load. So there's somebody, and you guys, everybody, when it comes to viruses, everybody wants to say the C word these days. Viruses have been around for decades. There's many of them that you can contract that will throw off your labs, that aren't the one that everybody's talking about these days, that you can't even say on social media anymore, or else shit goes down. But so if somebody has chronically low white blood cells, you can kind of imagine it like your white blood cells would be really, really high in the presence of an acute problem. But if they've been to war, you can imagine them like you've sent soldiers to war, and now they've lost the war. And now you're losing your soldiers, and now they're chronically low because they've lost the war, and whatever infectious state is currently in the body has won, and it's going to stay there. Yep. And the percentages and the ratios are what's going to tell you, hey, is it bacterial based or is it viral based? What labs should we order? If somebody has chronically low white blood cells or chronically low neutrophils, that to me, with no other information, represents viral status within the body and would necessitate further investigation through labs and questionnaires.
Yep, bingo. This goes back to that reference range conversation, right? Like you got to know what you're looking at. There's a good one here in the chat. Any good books or articles or other resources that you can go to learn more about CBCs and CMP interpretation?
Hey, dude, you got to go to the literature, unfortunately. So I know that's not the answer you want, but there isn't an authority that's like just giving all of the good stuff away. That's actually, well, me and Andy kind of sneak peek. We've been thinking about doing a few presentations across the USA in 2022. Not confirmed, but we've been thinking about doing it. And basically, that would be the one to attend if it happens. You know, if schedule permits between our athletes and between our families, we've got a whole lot going on. But you really have to go straight to the literature. And I actually talked about this on Barbell Shrugged, I believe it was. I can't remember. I think it was Barbell Shrugged, where there was actually an excellent study came out from the Journal of Insurance Medicine that showed that albumin should not be below 4.0. But you'll actually see on LabCorp that albumin, the bottom end of the range, goes all the way down to 3.5. Well, according to the Journal of Insurance Medicine, just a small study involving 1.7 million people, by the way, across 12 years of interpretation, very small study, it actually showed your mortality is going to increase over 200% if you drop below 4. So like when somebody's asking me, hey, how do I identify optimal reference ranges? You stay up to date with the literature. And unfortunately, reading the literature is really the only way to do that at this point in time. So that's how it is.
Yeah, the other reason for that is, boy, I can pick 100 examples of this. Yeah. Remember, science is not a set thing. It changes. And so even things like vitamin D, if you're paying attention to that literature, and there's been a handful of really nice reviews in the last couple of years published on this topic, it's a strong likelihood that that's being measured incorrectly. And so we're getting a bunch of false information there, but you don't know. And so if you don't stay on top of the research, you buy iron, geez, yeah, like that's another one. Yeah, brutal, but so you really just need, like, if you want to get really good at this stuff and really want to service athletes, you're just going to have to stay on top of the research as much as you can. You're going to miss some, that's fine, but do the best you possibly can to stay on top of the research. There won't be a textbook that you can never go back to. So that's a good one. There was actually a nice comment, a couple of comments in here actually about inflammation. Okay. And I do want to clarify a few things. Yeah, so when you're working with a professional athlete, I'm sorry, I forgot who made this comment, but you're absolutely correct. Minimizing inflammation is not always the goal. And in fact, inflammation, as you astutely pointed out in your comment, is the primary driver of adaptation. And I've talked about this at length in many other places, but you need to have, again, this is why you don't want a robot. You don't want just an app interpreting your blood, because depending on the phase of training you're in, the part of the year, the part of your career, higher or lower levels of some inflammation may be totally appropriate. They may be, in fact, the goal. So if you walk around all the time minimizing inflammation, you, again, as you point out in your comment, you could be actually going against the thing. So this is why you need to have somebody interpreting your labs or looking at your labs carefully, paying attention to you as an athlete, thinking about all the other things in context. If you've got multiple draws over multiple years and you can see what's normal for you during this phase, then you're going to make better decisions that way. So yeah, absolutely. None of this stuff is interpreted just on its own. You have to consider other factors as well. So I don't know if, Dan, you have any other additional comments to add to that, or if you want to move on?
Oh man, I mean, I could talk about inflammation for freaking 8 hours. So it's a big one. The only thing I think I'd add is a funny thing, because when you called me earlier, that uric acid study I was reading, it was on inflammation. So what they actually did was they dunked a bunch of college kids in ice cold tanks. And then the moment they got out of the tank, so they measured the uric acid before they got in the tank, and then they dunked them in the tank, because who cares about college kids? You could do whatever you want with them. And then they take them out of the tank, and they took their blood instantly. And uric acid was actually extremely low because it was dealing with the pro-inflammatory beneficial hormetic response of that cold plunge. So uric acid, as the water-soluble antioxidant, was actually being triggered endogenously by the body to deal with the free radical release of the cold plunge, which I thought was super cool. So the cold plunge represents hormesis and an inflammation you're trying to deal with. And uric acid represents a part of that endogenous adaptation process of your body's ability to strengthen the way in which it deals with stressors. So just kind of a cool full circle. I'm glad I read that study now.
Yeah, there was actually another comment in here about uric acid. Anything you feel like you want to say about that, or you want to just move on to the next one? I know we're getting real pressed for time here, so.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one. Any of these markers we can talk about forever, brother.
Yeah, okay, cool. There was a whole bunch of questions about gut microbiome and digestion and things like that, but just for the sake of time and to keep clarity here, I guess if you're interested, maybe we'll do another one of these and we'll pick a different area of analysis, hormones or sleep. There's a couple questions about sleep analysis or digestion, GI stuff. So if y'all want, I guess, let us know. in some form or fashion, and perhaps we'll do this again. You seem to be getting a lot of interactions, so this is great. I'm thrilled. Seems to be a lot of people enjoying this. So
Yeah.
perhaps
Thank you guys for joining.
Yeah, this is
This is
good.
cool.
Okay, so try not to end the thing here and actually hit the wrong button with my idiot fingers. So let's see here. There was one I wanted to go back with, and fine. Okay, there it is. 52. Yeah. Okay, we'll jump over to maybe the last couple questions here. There's some pretty funny ones about terrible experiences with physicians.
All right. We've been down this road.
Yeah. Okay, let's tackle maybe another really high-level one. Someone wants to, people are super jazzed and enraged about the anabolic side of the equation. So they want to make sure that they don't have low testosterone, and we actually see a lot of people going on TRT, probably unnecessarily, probably not a good thing actually, maybe even causing some problems with them. But if we want to get a quick glance at somebody's anabolic side of the equation, do you recommend anything outside of what's going to come in their traditional panels we talked about, or what are you looking for there, I guess?
Only if it's low. So so many people are quick to jump to TRT if they have low testosterone. But I never just think low testosterone, take testosterone. I think low testosterone, why is it low? Because there are so many different metabolic processes that could represent a logical explanation as to why you have low testosterone. Yep. And that if we solve those at the root causal level, the testosterone can go back to what it's normally functioning at, which is a normal homeostatic level. Zinc and magnesium are rate-limiting steps in testosterone synthesis. Vitamin D is important for testosterone production. Saturated fats and actually LDL cholesterols are used to make anabolic hormones. Certain heavy metals, such as arsenic and cadmium, block testosterone receptor sensitivity from the Leydig cells from the brain on the testes. So you can think about it like the brain wants to send LH and FSH down to the testes in order to produce sperm and testosterone respectively. But cadmium and arsenic can take up this parking spot and simply just decrease receptor activity on the testes. Environmental pollutants, the exact mechanism is not known, but they are 100% endocrine disruptors, and they will offset testosterone. So if somebody does have low testosterone, and the question was kind of double folded, it's like, testosterone, what's going on, and what labs would we order after? It kind of depends on what their questionnaire looked like, where I would be leaning. Is it heavy metal? Is it environmental pollutants? Is it just simply a micronutrient problem? Are they not eating enough healthy fats? Do they have a stress problem? Because cortisol has an antagonistic relationship with testosterone. So if they're pumping out too much cortisol, they're not going to be making out testosterone. So you don't have low testosterone. You have high cortisol. And in this case, stress management would actually reverse that. So if there's a lot of different routes we can take, each of them as important as the next.
Yep. No question about it. So I would say, I guess to summarize my position on that is I'm not super concerned with which metric you use to measure testosterone. I'm more concerned with what you do about it.
Yeah, measured serum testosterone. Serum testosterone is scientifically fantastic. It gives us an excellent indicator as to what's going on. So just a serum testosterone that you can get in an endocrinology lab, just get your blood work done, add it on top of your CBC and CMP for 20 frickin' bucks, and you're gonna get an excellent baseline to see where you're at. Yep,
dope. Somebody asked a nice question there about Tunga Ali, so I'm assuming you guys were watching too much Andrew Huberman right now. I know he's all over it. Back in the day, we used to call that Long Jack. That's the other name. You'll hear it, Long Jack. That's
Long Jack extract.
Yeah, totally.
100 to 1.
Yeah. That's been around for a long time. I mean, there's some literature there, no question about it. You'll have plenty of people who will talk about their own personal experiences with it. But again, Dan just sort of explained my position as well on that, which is like, can be effective, but I just haven't encountered honestly too many people who need that, who that's the best solution for.
That's kind of the thing, right? So does Tomcat Alley or Long Jack, does it work? Yes. Do you need it? Well, let me reverse the question. Is Tonka Ali gonna get rid of arsenic? Is Tonka Ali gonna get rid of your psychological stress? Is it, you know what I mean? So yes, it is efficacious, but it's only efficacious to its potential if a other existing root cause problem is already eliminated.
Yeah.
So if you have a testosterone of 300, that's considered normal. Tonka Ali can bring that testosterone up, but if you have existing stressors holding back your physiology from being optimized, well, then you're never going to realize the full potential of that herb, despite the literature behind it.
Yeah. And I guess just the last kind of comment here before we wrap up, and just to clarify, Andrew's a good friend of mine, a very, very good friend of mine. So I'm just giving him the piss a little bit here.
Yeah. And a brilliant guy.
I talk to him constantly. We're in very close communication. So I knew him way back before he had an Instagram, I promise. So just a little.
You knew him back when it was Long Jack.
Yeah. For years. But yeah, you sort of answered one of the other questions in there, which is what numbers are you looking for? And yeah, man, I would say the same thing. I have seen people at 325, 350, 375 that are fine, that are totally outstanding. I've seen people at 600 who feel like shit.
Yeah.
So like, it's only one metric. It is an important one. It's the one that kind of captures the zeitgeist right now, and it grabs attention. But
for reference, I've worked with a UFC world champion with a testosterone of 350.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So imagine somebody who is fucking lean, jacked, conditioned, absolutely everything. So just make sure it is a thing, but it ain't the only thing.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll wrap there. This based on time. You've got dogs that need to get back to licking your face, and I've got children and other stuff to do. So I hope you all enjoyed that, and I'll try to not screw this up and save this and repost this. So I appreciate you all jumping in. And again, let myself and let Dan know if you want us to do this another time. If you want us to, if so, do you want us to do blood again, or do you want us to change topics? But yeah, we won't know unless you speak up. So hope you enjoyed this. Peace out.
Totally. See you guys.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
How do I end this thing? Do I hit the X? Is that the best way?
Probably.